Hi, this is my first live video, so it's a little bit confusing sometimes. But I'm gonna plow through it, even though it's definitely my edge. I'm gonna talk about relationships as a spiritual path and why, so many of them are that hard. Relationships are hard. They force us to confront a lot of things, and I think they're meant to be hard. And yeah, so first, let's just unpack a little bit, what is a spiritual path, and what is a relationship, right? Like a spiritual path. It's like I think. Let's see, how do we do this? There's this place in us that yearns and feels and wants and longs for this higher, more authentic, more alive, more open and connected place from where to live. It's a spiritual path is a journey to this place. It's about healing traumas, healing our stuff, and really tapping into the purpose of life and feeling in the flow of it. And it's a journey within, yeah. And relationships are a really good tool. In fact, there's a reason for relationships. They're a really good tool to go inwards and to be on that journey. It's like a compass, on our journey within towards ourselves. And human beings, I consider us to be spiritual animals. We are, on one hand, we're very animalistic beings. We're embodied. We have a body. We have instincts. We have urges. We have the desire to procreate, yeah, desire to nurture life and to manifest, and on this very physical kind of earth realm. And because we're in a dualistic world here, we're also a spiritual being, and we have an urge to connect to something greater, and the urge to kind of move past things and connect to the ultimate life force energy, and feel a part of it and feel like we're part of something greater and connect back to the divine, and live from that place. So as dualistic animals, we have this kind of combination of animal and spirit, yeah. And so relationships are really there for that, for both of these purposes. On one hand, we have these urges to create, to be in kind of sexual union, to be in this partnership that makes us feel safe on this primal level. And on the other hand, we want to be in a relationship because we want to be seen and loved, and connect, yeah, and connect. And so this is the part that I'm going to be talking about right now, kind of what is this spiritual connection of relationships. And people ask me, we all talk about is this the right relationship? What makes a good relationship? Is my relationship good? Should I be in this relationship? We kind of scratch our heads about what's the metric of relating. And that's not the right question. I think the right question is really, how aware of yourself are you in relationship? How much of a responsibility are we willing to take for our own stuff? Hi everybody, I'm so glad you're joining. This is really exciting. And yeah, and am I growing? In the relationship, am I actually growing? And am I being accessible in my core, authentic, vulnerable space in this relationship? Am I operating from this kind of higher self? So those are really the metrics of relationship, of are you getting stuff out of the relationship. It's not really about, is the person meeting my needs? Are they making me feel good? It's really about, am I being able to reflect and be responsible for my stuff in my relationship? And and I think, and I'm so guilty of this, especially in most of my life. We have this Disney notion of relationships, and it's not just Disney. It's the whole thing. Like somebody's gonna come and make me feel better. Like somebody's gonna come and, sweep me off my feet and meet all my needs and love me, and make me forget about all my feelings. Yeah. I won't have to feel my stuff when I'm in relationship. And so we're waiting, we're choosing, we're, for our knight in shining armor, our prince, our soulmate, and there's so many like vocabulary about this, like soulmate, twin flame, spiritual partner. I mean, like you name it, there's this idea of where is my perfect match to make me feel good and like embark on a journey with. Just a breath. And like whoever we attract, we really attract people who are our perfect match. They're our perfect vibrational match, to try and do something different, to try and grow. When we're little kids, our brains, and I always talk about this, our brains are pretty much locked and loaded in how we view the world and how we relate in the world by the age of like 6, maybe 7, but really, like, I think most scientific data says about 6. We learn how to relate, mostly through our family of origin, how to get our needs met or pseudo met, what love is, and how to feel kind of loved and what people expect of us, in relationship by the age of 6. So we're mostly unconscious about this. And the trick is, your memory, your long-term memory doesn't really start forming until you're 5 years old. So all of these like things that we learned as kids that are wired into our brain are locked and loaded as superhighways for how we actually live and react and manage relationships. Like we have no idea about it. Like we don't even have memory to access about this stuff, which makes it really difficult, which is why talk therapy is really not as effective, because we can't access that place through kind of like memory, word memory, language memory. It's really somatic memory that we can use. And so we're just operating like we grew up, we think we're adults, we have these adult bodies and we have jobs and we like relate to people, we go on dates, we have relationships. And we think we're like operating from like a conscious place of deciding, but really what we're doing is we're reacting based on what we learned as children, and we have no memory of this stuff that we learned. And so relationships, when we go into a relationship, we replay the stuff over and over again. We replay our superhighways that were wired when we were really little with our family of origin. And we connect with people in the same way. But the truth is, we want different outcomes. We want different outcomes. It's impossible for parents, for family of origin, to meet all the needs all the time of children. Sure, there's like spectrums of safe and unsafe, meeting needs, not meeting needs, But really, we devise as children, as little children, ways to get love from the outside, pseudo love. It's strategies. We become really strategic. Maybe if like I do all my dishes and I'm a good little boy or girl, I'll get appreciation, I'll get attention. Maybe if, sometimes it's like too much, maybe we feel smothered as little kids. And so our strategy is to back off. Maybe, yeah, there's just like a lot of ways that little kids kind of learn. And we keep replaying this stuff. As children, and we pick partners that that model the stuff that we learned as adults. Hold on one second, somebody's calling me. Yeah, I'm just gonna turn that off because it's distracting. And we want different outcomes. So we meet a partner and it's like amazing. Our serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin levels flood. We feel loved, we feel seen. The other person feels loved and seen. And we're kind of in this like emotional, hormonal cocktail of, oh my God, like finally somebody sees me, for about, 6 to 18 months, depending on how good the relationship is. And then after this kind of honeymoon phase, things start getting vaguely, strangely familiar. It's like, I don't know, for people who go through relationship cycles, there may be this like hint of, I've been here before. The same feelings are arising in me. I've been here before. I tried to make this relationship different, but this person is just like the other person. You know, it's like no matter how different I choose them, they're still just like that past relationship. They're still like my mother, they're still like my father. No matter what I do, I'm still ending up in this place where I have to feel these feelings. And so it's really not about the other person, it's about how we end up feeling in relationships. And so it's this place of taking responsibility for it. So we are always attracting the perfect vibrational match for ourselves. And yeah, we're always attracting the perfect vibrational match to put a mirror up to us and say, this is our stuff. I'm always feeling this way in relationship. It's not the other person who's making me do this. I am feeling this way. And I am navigating my relationships and I am co-creating my relationships that I feel this way. Yeah? Yeah. There's really this familiarity in these places. And if we really look in this familiarity, it'll become very clear that it's it's not about the other person. It's really about us. Excuse me, somebody's calling me and calling me and calling me, and it's really distracting. So I'm just throwing my phone over there, and they can do whatever they want. Yeah, it's I'm just observing right now how that made me feel, how my phone made me feel, and I'm noticing how familiar it is as a place of relationship, of like feeling invaded. So it's really actually a good model of what it feels. Yeah, some of us can feel invaded sometimes, and some of us can feel like it's not enough sometimes. Um, you know, but it's not about that. Like, it's not about my phone keeping ringing and me. It's like, that person, it keeps calling me. It's like I feel invaded. I lose my cool. So relationships are really mirrors. And until we take responsibility for how we're feeling in them and recognize that these places of familiarity about what's happening, they're familiar. And they keep happening again and again and again. Yeah. And it's not about what the other person's doing. Because we're co-creating this reality in which we face our fears. And we have the courage to say, this is because of me, this is because of my stuff that I am feeling this way. Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks for the helpful tip of putting my phone on silence or mute. I think it stopped. Yeah, but when I'm triggered, for example, I can't access that place of putting my phone on mute. This is actually a perfect example of what our stuff is and how we can't access these places. My phone is keeping ringing. It's throwing me completely off. I'm going live and I'm like, oh my God, there's this phone ringing and ringing and ringing. And you know what? Like, here's a really vulnerable thing. That's my relationship partner calling because he has no idea I'm doing this live thing. So he's calling and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have enough space for me to do this Facebook Live thing. and my relationship partners always throw me off. That's a story. And I don't have this in that place of trigger, in that place where I'm no longer like 38-year-old Sonia, where I am a 5-year-old little girl feeling invaded. I can't access the rational part of my brain that says mute your phone or turn your phone off, like Caitlin could here in her comments. Yeah, and that's what happens. And what happens a lot, we get triggered in relationships and we can't access the adult parts of ourselves. So, yeah, it's really hard to access these places. So, until we know what it is about us that is causing the dynamic that we don't like in relationships, and there's always going to be a dynamic that we don't like in relationships because that's the point of a relationship. That's the point on a spiritual level, to work out these things. You know? So until we learn what it is about us that we are causing this pattern and are causing this reactivity and are having these negative feelings inside of ourselves that we can blame our partners for, you know, and we stop blaming our partners for and recognize it ourselves. Until then, we don't know if we're in a good relationship or not because we're just reacting. We're just reacting all the time and thinking that it's that person and they're not listening to me and they're not doing that and they're not doing that. And they may well very not be doing it. Like, that's a reality too. You know, and it could be their responsibility to take ownership for their stuff. But until we really look inside of ourselves and take responsibility for our stuff, we have no idea if the relationship is good or bad. We have no idea until we, you know, if we need to leave the relationship or stay in the relationship. So all of these things become really clear once we start using relationships as a mirror to look at our own things. So yeah, so love heals. Like, I'm totally on board with the whole love heals thing. But it doesn't heal in the way that we think love should heal. You know, we really think that it should, you know, make us feel safe. The other person needs to make us feel safe and make us feel vibrant and make us feel whole and make us feel alive and connected. You know, connected is this big thing, you know. Sometimes in relationships we don't feel connected, and then we're like, oh, it's the other person, you know, the other person doesn't want to feel connected with me, the other person doesn't want to be intimate with me. That is such a thing. Like, I want to be intimate, I want to feel connected, and they don't. And that could be true. Like, it could be true that they're not wanting to be connected. I'm not denying that reality. But there is really a lesson in there for us. You know, what is the dynamic that I am creating to not want to feel connected? You know, Caitlin, you asked whether I work with couples. Yeah, I love working with couples. It's like, it's my jam. It's absolutely my jam. Relationships are my jam. Just because I've spent so much of my life trying to figure it out, and I'm still figuring it out. You know, it's an unfolding. It's like an onion unfolding. And more layers come off, and we feel more and more authentic. The more the layers come off, and the relationship is like this big tool that we can use to unfold this onion. So definitely, Caitlin, let's get in touch, and let's talk about working with couples. So yeah, you know, the other person may not want to be vulnerable, but what are we doing to create this dynamic? I used to think, here's a big one, I used to think that the other person is always not wanting to be vulnerable and connect. My story, you know, in the anxious avoidant trap, I always thought I was like the anxious one, and my partners are always avoidant. Like, I always pick the avoidant partners for my anxiety. And I think I came to like a really deep realization the other day that I am just as avoidant as anybody I pick. And in fact, the anxious avoidant trap, it's not like one person's anxious and the other person's avoidant. It's like there's safe, secure attachment, which to be honest, like I don't think anybody's 100% secure attached. Um, I think it's a myth because it's like the ultimate goal. So people can be more, people can be less, people can have good strategies, more adapted. But really, it's a goal. Secure attachment is a goal, and it's like this goal that's far, far away. And the closer you are to it, the bigger the goal. So that's kind of how I kind of see it. And if in my kind of anxious place, if my partner's showing up as avoidant, I'm anxious. But if my partner's coming up there and like showing up, I freak out. I'm the avoidant one. I freak out if somebody's like fully there for me, because it's scary. Because it's really, really scary to be in a place of vulnerability and authenticity and show yourself fully in this place. Because a lot of us, when we were little, I would say most of us really, in whichever degree, to be fully you was dangerous, because there's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of rejection of high emotions, of anger, of sadness, of fear. Well, really anger. There's not a lot of tolerance for anger in our society. There's not a lot of tolerance for sadness in a lot of places. So as little children, we were taught to mask all of that, to shy away, to go to our rooms. Be angry in your room, but not with me. And all of this stuff we bring into our relationships and we replay it, hoping that we'll get a different result. Basically, like our relationships as adults, our romantic partnership relationships, are basically like a rinse repeat of family of origin stuff, hoping for a different result in an unconscious way. And until we start being really conscious of what we're doing and the patterns that we're recreating, we are just in a rinse repeat cycle of our family of origin stuff. And so the work that I do with my partners is, with my clients, is I bring consciousness into this rinse repeat cycle. It's like, what are you doing that you've been doing your whole life, hoping for a different outcome? We're attracting the same people, same type of people, the exact vibrational matches to our own trauma. We're attracting people who are like the magnetic opposite. It's like puzzle pieces, like magnetic puzzle pieces. It's like we're attracting the exact puzzle piece to meet our trauma. So we attract complementary wounds, complementary stuff that needs to heal. And that's why relationships are so beautiful as a spiritual path, because we're attracting the exact, magnetic opposite puzzle piece to the stuff we need to heal. And we can both work in this complementary way on our own stuff. And so the more the two parties work on their own stuff in a relationship, the higher and higher the consciousness of what's really going on. And until we start doing our own work, we don't know. Sometimes it happens that one person starts doing the work and the other person isn't. And then it becomes very clear about how to proceed, but the clarity isn't really there until we start doing our own work. And sometimes when one person starts doing the work, it's such an important catalyst for the other person to start doing the work as well. Does anybody have any questions? I feel like I'm just rambling just about all this beautiful stuff. If you have any questions, just type them into the chat. Heather. Hi, Bobby. Thank you so much for the love. I am so grateful. Thanks, Heather, for this whole thing about I don't think there's any 100% secure people. There's no 100% healed people, and so we all have our stuff, and our stuff comes up in relationships. And sexuality actually is a really, we can talk about relationships and all of these kind of dynamics about attachment. And sexuality is a really, really important barometer of where we are, um, because sexual energy is our life force energy. Yeah, it's this place in us that when we connect to it, it feels alive and it feels authentic. And the more connected we are in that place of sexuality to ourselves, and share it with the other person, that's the thing. Can we share our life force energy with the other person? So, I always tell people, like, before you can really authentically make love to another person, you have to learn how to do it with yourself. First make love to yourself and then share it with another person. And so sharing that place with other people, especially people that were really in a deep dive place of, you know, old patterns, that rinse repeat cycle of childhood wounds, that really familiar place. It's like this place that it's like this taste that, like, I've been here before. I've been here before. In that place of I've been here before, to share your sexuality in a way that is open and vulnerable, that is very, very hard. Yeah. And so we can have another Facebook Live about it. I feel like I'm just talking a lot. I think I'm going to start wrapping up. Does anybody have any questions or things that they want to really kind of know about, or things that they want to raise? Thank you so much for listening and viewing and all the positive feedback. No? All right, I'm not seeing any more comments. So yeah, so I just want to kind of wrap up with this thing of, we are all taught, we come into this world and we quickly learn as little kids, and we carry this onwards, that we have to do something or be someone to be loved. And it's a strategy. It's like you can't really be fully yourself. In our patriarchal society, for men, it's really, a lot of it is like, I have to sometimes maybe provide or earn a living or have some sort of like a career, or be big manly. For women, a lot of it is like, sometimes, I grew up in Russia, the big thing is you have to be a good housewife. You have to be a kind of this nurturing place. You have to, whatever your flavor is of, I have to be someone or do something to be loved, that is a strategy that comes up again and again in relationships. And that is why in relationships we feel sometimes like we have to give ourselves away to be loved. And that's that place that is so familiar and that hurts. Like, what part of ourselves are we giving away to be loved? And it's different for everybody, but what part of ourselves are we giving away to be loved? And so I think the journey of spiritual relationships is, of relationships as a spiritual journey is, how do I show up fully and authentically as myself and share that authenticity with my partner? And a lot of it is boundaries, and a lot of it is expressing needs and kind of increasing the sense of self. The sense of self needs to be really strong to hold that and anchor it, to be able to share it with the other person. But it's really flipping this notion of love on its head, from getting love to sharing my love. I have another question here is, what if there's psychological or physical abuse in the relationships? Is a person attracting that too? That's a really good question. Thank you, Parvina. And I'm just gonna breathe into it for a moment, because I think it's a deep question, and I don't want to, I really want to honor it. Nobody deserves abuse. Nobody's attracting, nobody's asking for abuse. Yeah. Um, but let me see how I can frame this. And I don't want to say that it's anybody's fault that they're abused. Especially as young children. That's definitely not. And it's nobody's fault that they're physically abused as adults, and that's really like a traumatic situation that needs to be getting out, removed. A person cannot feel safe in that situation, and you cannot take responsibility for yourself in a situation where there is physical abuse. It's a dangerous situation. You know, I if there's if somebody is feeling like they are in a relationship where they are experiencing emotional or physical abuse, then I think the work there is, how can I be safe? What can I do to make myself feel safe? What um, what have I not, and from this place we can really start like introspecting, like how we cannot really get into the deep of our own stuff until we're feeling a little bit safe. That's the other trick. Um, and and so if one cannot feel safe in a relationship in this place where there is abuse, um, then there are choices to make. Yeah, there's choices to make about how to feel safe. Maybe it's about getting out of the relationship to feel safe. And it's only from that place that we can start working on stuff of like, why am I in relationships that make me feel so unsafe, that are so abusive? Um, why did I say yes to this for a long time? Why did I co-create this dynamic, And it's really moving from a place of victimhood, of being a victim of abuse, which is a real thing. Like, that's a real thing. But it's an experience. And so why are we in a place of victim? And how can we move from a place of victim to a place of an empowered sovereign being? And that is a difficult journey, but it's such an empowering and amazing journey of moving from a mentality. It's also a mentality of victim to empowered. But if we are getting abused, the first thing to do is get the abuse. And if it's not stopping in the relationship, then it's a decision everybody has to deal with. How can we stop it? And if it doesn't stop in the relationship, then, does the relationship need to end for me to stop being abused? Yeah. And from this place of, and that's a journey in itself, and that's a beautiful journey, because it's a journey from a place of victim, from a place of an empowered sovereign being. And that journey of getting out of an abusive situation is deeply, deeply transformative. Deeply transformative. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Maybe like a thumbs up or something. I'm happy to chat about it more also. Yeah. Yeah. What else is there? I think it's about it. Is there any other questions? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so relationships, I just want to end, like, relationships are a deep journey to our place of sovereignty, authenticity, that feeling of aliveness, that feeling of I am responsible for myself and I am responsible for how I'm feeling. And it's never perfect, we all get caught up in our places where we feel unsafe, and it's this rinse repeat. But more and more as we work on our stuff and we feel more authentic, we feel more responsible for it, and we feel more empowered in our lives. So this is just something that this is my jam, and this is what I work with individuals with and couples in bringing consciousness to these patterns, um, to come out of them and to stop living from a place of like, life is happening to me, like this person is doing this relationship is this, like it's always this, to a place of me. I am choosing, I am creating, I am empowered, and and I am loving, and I can choose to share my love. Yeah. So with that, I thank you guys so much for listening. Uh, yeah, I love you guys very much. I'm getting a kick out of doing this. I didn't think I would go on for so long, but you guys are so beautiful. All right, bye.